Good morning, everyone. Welcome to your second half of the spring term. I hope you had a very lovely half-term break and are well rested and eager to carry on with your online lessons. Our lovely caretaker, Ed's been working behind the scenes, doing some lovely touch-ups around the school. So be looking nice and fresh and ready for you when we're allowed to all come back. So fingers crossed that will be very, very soon. I'd like to share something very special with you today for my assembly. Miss Kipps has asked me to help her with this because she's running a very special event coming up soon. And so that's what my assembly is going to be about today. In a couple of weeks' time, we are going to be taking part and celebrating British Science Week. That'll be running for the week of the 5th, beginning the 5th of March all the way to the 14th of March. And it's a very exciting development, and you'll be hearing a lot more about this from your teachers during form time. So I thought I'd just tell you what it's all about. And there's a theme for this year's Science Week, and I think you'll find it really interesting. It's all about innovating the future. Now, when we think about innovating, it's something that when we think about it, it's all about things that change our future, things that have changed our past, possibly. So inventions are a big part of this, and it's going to be encouraging all of us to think about past inventions that have changed our lives, but have also inspired young people such as yourselves to make change for the future and to think about creative things that we need to change our lives and our future. So a little question for you: what does the word innovation mean? I'll give you 10 seconds to think about that. What do you think the word innovation could mean? And if you think about the little text at the top and what I've said, it might have given you a little bit of a clue, because innovation, an innovation is a new idea, a method, or a new way of doing something. Okay, so it's a completely new concept. Okay, so if you think of an innovation being a new idea, an invention is then something that has never been made before. It's something new. So if you have invented something, it is something that's never been made before. It's your unique idea or product. So let's have a look. Let's go back in time and have a look at inventions that changed the world, because this has influenced how we live today, all of these inventions. And a lot of them were thought about by people that weren't maybe scientists or engineers. They could see something or noticed a problem somewhere and wanted to change the way things were done. For example, the television. Now, a gentleman called John Logie Baird invented the first TV all the way back in 1924, and they went on sale a few years later in the late 1920s. Now, back in the day, they only showed black and white pictures, all right? And also, and I didn't know this until I read this presentation, that at the beginning of TV, it couldn't send moving images of humans, so they actually had to pay puppeteers and ventriloquists to use dummies instead. And you can see an image there of exactly how they would record this and how it would be done. And it was, I mean, look at the size of that contraption, first of all, how they had to put these things together just to create some sort of moving image. And like I said, humans were not part of that at the beginning. The technology wasn't there. Now, look at this. This I found fascinating. This was the first petrol-powered car. So this was the first car that used petrol, just like we do today. And the date is very fascinating. In 1885, that's over no, it's not. It's over 100 years ago. It was created by someone called Carl Benz. Now, think about that name, Benz. That sounds like a very familiar name for a certain car that's manufactured in Germany. It was only fast enough to travel at 6 miles an hour. This is not that much faster than an average walking pace. So if you're a speed walker like me, you could probably have overtaken that car. But yeah, that's what it looked like. You sat out in the open. You were luckily protected by this covering that could go back and forth. And look at the wheels, which were very modern at the time, and the little lamps there. So that, obviously, you can see could fit 2 people maybe a little bit of luggage at the back. The first mobile phone was invented by Martin Cooper. He worked for Motorola. It's still a very big tech giant at the moment. This was invented on the 3rd of April in 1973, so that was before I was born. It weighed 1.1 kilograms, which is pretty heavy, and the size was about the size of 2 loaves of bread. So you couldn't fit the first mobile phone in your pocket, that is for sure. You'd probably need a separate bag just for that. But all technology has to start somewhere, and it started there with Martin Cooper in 1973. So now we get to the concept of, is it always just one person that invents, or is it a team of people? Because obviously many inventions in the past were made by one person, but sometimes that one person would notice a problem or something that needed to be changed, and this would then in turn over time change for millions. And here's a few examples. All right, this I thought was fascinating. There's a gentleman called George de Mestral, and he was walking through the countryside one day, and he noticed that some of these weird seeds would stick to his clothing. And this played on his mind. I don't know if it annoyed him or if it was just something that he couldn't get out of his head. But from remembering this, he actually went home and used the idea to invent Velcro, which is pretty much everywhere today. You know, your shoes, on bags, watch straps, everywhere. It's revolutionized the world. So you can imagine how much money this gentleman would have made from that simple idea of seeds sticking to his clothes to then invent something called Velcro. Now, many inventions weren't only just invented by one person. They often have improved over the years as many people worked on them. Sometimes a simple idea invented by one ended up being changed and modified over time. For example, long ago, and I mean like 5,000 years ago, the Chinese people were using an abacus. It was a very old-fashioned counting tool to calculate some problems in maths. But then they, over time, learned that by moving these levers and gears of old calculators, they used that idea to develop an electronic computer. So now, back in the day, these new early computers, they were about the size of a room. But these early computers have now evolved to the personal computers we use. It's evolved into the laptop I'm using now to present this assembly. If you've got a home PC at home, it would have been a revolution from that old abacus, from that old calculator. Now, obviously, over time, they've gotten smaller and smaller and more powerful. You could probably relate that to the smartphones we use now. So this idea was a team effort over thousands of years. And there you go. Have a look at that. So Konrad Zuse, he was a German civil engineer. He created the first programmable computer, so something that could be programmed. He called it the Z1 in 1936. And as I said, take a look at the size. All of those pieces are for this one computer, but it all had to start somewhere. So let's have a look at a timeline. Now, obviously, there's thousands of inventions over the last 100 years, but I thought I would show you just a few that you could relate to and give you a little bit of information about them. So if we're going to look from the 1920s all the way up to last year, 2020, we see the following. So in 1924, a lady called Clarence Birdseye discovered a very quick way to freeze food, to make frozen food. And have you noticed the interesting thing about her second name, Birdseye? Now we know where the company Birdseye comes from. What about this one? Alexander Fleming, he discovered the antibiotic penicillin, which is probably the most common antibiotic that hospitals and doctors prescribe today. It's very good for fighting infections. He discovered this by accident as well. A gentleman by the name of Laszlo Joseph Biro made the first ballpoint pen, and guess what he's called? Guess what we call them today? Biros. And look at his second name. Stephanie Kwolek, she invented Kevlar, and that is probably the most important material to use when creating things like bulletproof vests. And as you can see, it's being worn there by a police officer. And those have saved hundreds and hundreds of lives, not just for police officers, but for soldiers, for bodyguards and things like that. So that was a brilliant invention in the 1970s. And it was all about testing new ideas. Then this is a good one because this is a British person. Sir Tim Berners-Lee, he developed the World Wide Web, also known as the Internet. He developed that platform for sharing information, for having information on hand, and for communicating with others. That was only, if you look, in 1989. So it's actually not that long ago. And then the most recent big one was the company Apple that introduced Siri, and it's revolutionized, well, it's made a few of us a bit lazy, but it's revolutionized a very good way of communicating and finding information very quickly on hand, right? So skills, okay, do we need certain skills to be an inventor? Well, yes and no, because as we saw, some of these inventions happened by accident or by just through good luck. Obviously, some of them happened with lots of people working together and creating these concepts and working on these ideas. So it's your turn now to have a think. What skills do you think you might need? If you want to be an inventor, what do you think the skills are you might need? And it's not as hard as you might think. It could be curiosity, perseverance, something we know a lot about at Cook Spinney, patience, something Mr. Beaumont's not very good with, but I am working on it. How about yours? If just off the top of my head, I can think of maybe having a good idea. Sometimes all you need is a good idea or a good concept to come up with your plan to being an inventor. So I'd like to quickly talk to you about this gentleman, Lonnie G. Johnson. You might not know who he is, but you'll find out in a few minutes why I think he's such an inspiration. So he was born in America in 1949. He was the third of 6 children. And from a very young age, he was very curious about how things worked, and he often took objects apart to look inside. I used to do that in my dad's garage many years ago. Any old electrical things that weren't working anymore, he would allow me to take apart and look through them and play safely with them and just kind of learn. When he was at high school, he worked hard to build a robot for a science fair, and he won the first prize, first place for that. What he had done was he actually pieced it together from a combination of old junk that he had found and the inside of a walkie-talkie and an old music recorder from his sister. I hope he had her permission and didn't just take it apart. When he grew up, he became an engineer. And one day he was experimenting. He had built a new water pump for his home, for his bathroom at home. And accidentally, what happened was a stream of water shot out of this pump, and he realized this actually, wow, this could be a cool toy. And he invented the super soaker. So, a water pistol, we can basically thank him for that. And I'm sure a lot of you know this. They are great fun. They can be annoying when we're caught by surprise, but super soakers and water pistols, a great form of mischievous entertainment. Believe me, I know. What about children? Can children be inventors? Absolutely, of course you can. And here's a few examples of some children in history who saw a need in something and went about to invent something to help. Look at this. An 11-year-old girl called Cassidy Goldstein was fed up trying to draw with broken crayons. And we can all relate to that because I'm telling you now, even all of the teachers in our school know and have used crayons from when they were little. They've been around forever. But there's nothing worse than a broken crayon, and I'm sure we can all agree with that. When it came down to those small little pieces at the end, she couldn't hold it properly, she couldn't color properly, so she actually found a plastic tube at home and put the crayons inside, and then basically invented something called a crayon holder, and those are sold in many toy shops around the world today. This little boy, Richie, he was on holiday in Hawaii and he went swimming, but he wanted to share so many of the cool things with his dad that he could see underwater, but obviously you can't talk underwater. So he started researching and he tested a few ideas, and then soon he came up with something called a water talkie. It's a cone-shaped device that actually allows you to talk to someone underwater, and they're sold in toy shops all around the world. He's become a millionaire just from that simple idea. there was a 16-year-old called Boyan Slat who went diving on holiday in Greece in 2011, but he got really upset because he saw more plastic than fish in the water, and he decided, I'm going to do something about this. So he's gone around and designed and invented something called a floating barrier. And this device, you put it in the ocean and it catches all the plastic that's floating on the surface. And this is called, he's named his company the Ocean Cleanup. And this boy now has more than 90 people working for his company to remove plastic from the oceans. And that's quite a recent invention. And it's really, really changing the way a lot of us now are thinking about our plastic use. So your task for Science Week this year, and you're going to get some more information from Ms. Kipson, your class teachers during form time, and we'll be posting a few things on the school website to give you inspiration and help you. So those children, Cassidy, Richie, and Boyan, they all needed something to help them. So they decided to invent it themselves, okay? So necessity is something you need. You need to think about necessity. It is the mother of all inventions, okay? Necessity means there needs to be something desired, a need for change, a need that needs to be fixed, okay? So now it's over to you, okay? What do you need and what could you invent to help you? So think of something that needs changing or helped for you personally, and come up with your own innovation, your own invention. Okay, so the organizers of British Science Week would like you to enter a poster competition on the topic of innovation for the future. And if you go to the website britishscienceweek.org, you can find loads of more information there. And don't worry, we'll be sharing lots at school as well. So think about it. Science is part of our lives every day. You might not even know it, okay? So think about some things, some questions that might interest you, and try and find these answers online, okay? Because it's a great way for us to be innovators and try and solve maybe small daily life problems. So here are some interesting questions. How can I talk with my friends in Australia? Why is water wet? Why is the sky blue? How can I invent smelly vision? Those are all scientific questions these children are going to be researching to find the answer of. So as I said, there's going to be more shared with you as the week goes on, but I hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget, we'll be posting loads more information on the school website, and your teachers will be telling you more about it during form time. So have a good week. Welcome back, and I'll be chatting to you very, very soon. Take care. Bye.